They don't love you most when you are sitting beside them. Not when you reach out and hold their hand. Not when your laughter fills the room. Not when your presence is steady, warm, undeniable. They love you most when you are gone. When your voice has become an echo. When your touch is only a memory. When your absence allows their heart to feel what their presence would not let them. It makes no sense to you. Because love is supposed to grow in closeness. It's supposed to deepen when two people share space. But with the avoidant, closeness awakens fear, and distance awakens longing. This is the paradox that shapes every relationship with them. They love you more in your absence, not because they don't value you when you're there, but because when you are near, their walls rise up. And when you are gone, their defenses collapse. The paradox of absence and presence. The avoidant carries a nervous system trained to fear closeness. To you, intimacy feels safe. To them, intimacy feels threatening. Your presence is not just you. It is every past experience where closeness was tied to pain. Every moment where love came with rejection. Every childhood memory where being vulnerable meant being hurt. So when you are near, their body sounds the alarm. Not consciously, not because they choose it, but because their wiring cannot separate you from the ghosts of their past. They pull away. They shut down. They act cold. Not because love has vanished, but because their fear has drowned it out. Now compare this to your absence. When you are not there, the alarm quiets. Their system relaxes. They don't feel engulfed. They don't feel exposed. They don't feel like they're standing on the edge of losing themselves. Instead, they feel safe enough to miss you. Safe enough to remember your presence without the terror it triggers. Safe enough to let themselves feel what they couldn't tolerate in the moment. This is why they often idealize you when you're gone. Why they replay your words in their head. Why they find themselves longing for you only after you step away. Absence gives them permission to feel. Presence forces them to defend. It's not that their feelings change. It's that their defenses decide what they are allowed to feel. When you're with them, their defenses are in charge. When you're away, their feelings are allowed to surface. This is why they'll send you a text when you finally stop reaching out. Why they'll think of you most when they're alone at night. Why silence and distance pull them into remembering how much you mean to them. They can love you in absence because absence feels safe. They struggle to love you in presence because presence feels dangerous. To you, that difference feels like rejection. But to them, it's survival. And until they heal the wound at the root, this paradox will follow them everywhere. They'll love deeply, but only at a distance. They'll miss you fiercely, but only when you're gone. They'll realize your value, but only when you're no longer standing right in front of them. Why closeness feels like a threat. Closeness should feel safe, comforting, like home. But for the avoidant, closeness feels like danger. It sets off alarms they don't even know are ringing. Their nervous system doesn't register intimacy as warmth. It registers it as pressure, as suffocation, as a threat to their independence, which is the very thing they believe keeps them alive. When you lean in, they lean back. When you reach out, they retreat, not because they don't care, but because closeness awakens something ancient inside them, something that whispers, "If I let you too close, I'll lose myself." This isn't logical. It's not a choice. It's a survival pattern. Long before you ever entered the picture, their body learned that vulnerability was dangerous, that expressing need was met with rejection, or worse, abandonment. So they adapted. They closed the door. They built walls, and those walls became their shelter. Every hug that lingers too long, every question that digs too deep, every attempt at connection that feels just a bit too close. To them, it's not affection. It's intrusion. It's someone pressing against a wound they've tried their entire lives to cover. You might notice it in their body language, the slight stiffening when you reach out, the way their eyes look away when you open up, the silence that follows after you share your heart. They're not rejecting you. They're defending themselves against a closeness that feels like danger. Imagine someone who's lived their whole life in a drought. Then suddenly, a flood comes. It's water, the very thing they need. But it's too much, too fast. They can't drink it. They can only run. That's what intimacy feels like for the avoidant. Your presence overwhelms them. Your love exposes them. Your closeness demands a surrender they don't believe is safe to give. So they withdraw, not because they don't love you, but because, in their body, distance feels safer than closeness ever could. And yet, it's in this retreat that the cruel paradox begins. The very thing they push away in the moment becomes the thing they long for in your absence. The paradox of longing and distance. Here's the truth no one tells you. Avoidants do long for connection. They crave closeness. They want to be loved. But wanting love and being able to tolerate love are two very different things. You see it in the push and pull. One moment they're leaning in. The next, they're gone. It feels like whiplash, like hot and cold, like mixed signals you can never quite read. But inside them, it's not a game. It's torment. They feel the pull toward you, the warmth of your presence, the safety you try to offer. And in that same moment, they feel the urge to flee, to reclaim distance, to protect themselves before it's too late. It's not you they're running from. It's their own terror, the ghost of every time closeness turned into pain. Here's the paradox. The more they long for you, the more they fear you. They'll replay your words when you're not there. They'll miss you in the quiet of their nights. They'll imagine what it would feel like to finally let go. But the instant you return with love in your hands, they shut down. They close the door. They retreat into the only safety they know. It's why so many partners of avoidance feel invisible. You can sense the feelings are there, but they never reach you. They hover behind glass, untouchable. Think of it like this. They're thirsty, but the water burns. They're starving, but food feels poisonous. They need what they fear, and they fear what they need. This paradox is exhausting for both of you. For them, it feels like living in two bodies at once. One pulling forward, one pulling back. For you, it feels like a cruel trick, like being punished for offering the very thing they secretly want. And this is the heartbreak of loving an avoidant. Their silence is an emptiness. It's longing locked away. Their distance is an indifference. It's fear disguised as coldness. They want you. They miss you. They just don't know how to hold you without feeling like they'll shatter. And so the cycle continues. Longing, retreat, yearning, withdrawal, until one day, the cycle breaks. And that break always comes at a cost. When absence awakens desire, they never admitted how much you meant. Not when you stood before them, not when your hand brushed theirs, not when your voice carried warmth into their silence. They told themselves they didn't need it. That closeness was too dangerous. That wanting you was weakness. So they pulled back, created distance, looked away when your eyes searched for theirs. But absence is a mirror they can't turn from. When you're gone, the silence is louder. The bed feels colder. Their routines feel empty. They thought freedom would feel like oxygen. Instead, it tastes like smoke. They thought space would bring relief. Instead, it brought hunger. Because when you are not there, they are no longer managing you. They are managing themselves. And that is harder. They don't have your presence to push against. No reassurance to reject. No love to hold at arm's length. What remains is the echo, the memory, the ghost of what they kept at bay. And here is the truth most never see. For the avoidant, love blooms in the shadow of loss. It stirs strongest in absence. It grows wild where presence once stood. Because when you are near, they fear being swallowed. But when you are gone, they fear being starved. It is a paradox that shapes their every relationship. And so they crave you most when they've pushed you away. They long for you most when you've stopped reaching. They love you most when they cannot have you. In their solitude, your laughter replays. Your kindness magnifies. Your flaws soften. And your absence glows brighter than your presence ever did. They remember what they didn't let themselves feel. They ache for what they swore they didn't need. And quietly, painfully, they realize they loved you more than they admitted. Not when you were close enough to touch, but when you were gone. Because distance protects them when you are near, but distance destroys them when you are far. And this is the cruel rhythm of their love. Presence terrifies them, absence awakens them, and they are caught between the two. The love they can't escape. They told themselves it didn't matter, that you were just another person, that they could walk away untouched. But absence has a way of telling the truth. When the calls stop, when the texts go silent, when the presence they once resisted finally disappears, they are left with themselves. And the silence is brutal. They replay the way you looked at them, how you listened without judgment, how you reached for them. Even when they pulled away, they remember your patience, your warmth, the love you carried even when it went unreturned. At the time, they couldn't take it in. They were too defended, too guarded, too afraid that needing you meant losing control. But now the walls protect them from nothing, because absence strips away the illusion. And what's left is undeniable. You mattered, more than they admitted, more than they showed, more than they could bear to face while you were still there. They feel the ache at night. When the world is quiet, they feel it in the small things. When life reminds them of you, a song, a phrase, a familiar place, and suddenly you are everywhere. This is why the avoidant often circles back, why they resurface when you've stopped chasing, why they confess in subtle or broken ways that they can't quite let go, because absence isn't freedom for them. It is a haunting, and love, the very thing they feared most when you were close, becomes the one thing they cannot escape when you are gone. They don't always say it. They may never show it clearly. But know this, your presence shaped them, your absence defined them, and in the quiet they can't outrun. They love you most where you no longer are. If this touched something in you, you're not alone. The more we understand the avoidant heart, the more power we gain to heal our own. Stay with me here on the Inner Odyssey, and let's keep uncovering the truths no one else will tell you.